I've kind of been thinking about this, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on it about the young guys, because we talked about this year being a prove it year, a see what we got year. How I know a lot of people will be upset by this. What about 2024 being a see what we got year? Because you have these guys. I know you have Colt Keith. Don't you kind of want to see what you got in Colt Keith next year? Don't you want to see what Parker Meadows can do for a full year? What about Justin Henry Malloy? You got Andre Lipsius, Winsell Perez. Hell, maybe these young starters, you want to give Reese Olson a full year to see what he can do. What are your guys' thoughts on 2024 kind of being another year where you continue to see the development from the guys that have been at the major league level this year, but also calling up these young guys and giving them a full season to see what they can really be for the Detroit Tigers?
Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be a prove it year, right? I mean, I don't think there is any expectations of really making the playoffs next year. I mean, the AL Central is the AL Central, and I think this year it was the prove it year for the Twins, because they've called up Royce Lewis, and I'm forgetting their other young guys off the top of my head. But this was a prove it year for them, and they've kind of run away with the division. Those guys, they're balling out. Eduardo Julian, I mean, he's great.
Yeah, he is matching.
So I think next year the Tigers should hope to maybe be what the Twins are this year, where like Colt Keith comes up, Justin Henry Malloy comes up, and they might not win the division off that. But if they can get close to 500, then it's probably time to pull the trigger. Hey, we're ready to compete. These young guys, it'll be another year of Torkelson and hopefully another year of Riley Green. Not being injured is what I'm getting at there. Kerry Carpenter. So yeah, DH spot has freed up. So yeah, I don't think there's any expectations for the playoffs next year. I think the expectation should be Colt Keith gets plate appearances, Justin Henry Malloy gets to plate appearances, Casey Mize comes back from Tommy John, and then you go from there. You just see what you act. I want to say see what you actually have, but build off what you have.
I'm going to go the other way.
Yeah, I knew you would.
I think that one, and this goes back to the Avila days and with what Chris Ilitch has done. I always wanted them to use free agency and trade to build a base of stable veterans to add the youngsters around. I would have gone that route versus waiting for the youngsters to grow up and get good, and then I'm going to bring in all these magical veterans and we're going to win. I would have gone the other way, and that's fine. People have feelings both sides of that. Not a problem. But for next year, when you look, again, the goal is always to win the World Series, right? I mean, the division is great, and they want to win the division, and nobody would be upset if they win the division. But you got to have a team that's going to win the World Series. They're not there. We know that. But for next year, I really believe that we've seen that if Riley Green can stay healthy, knock on wood, and we know what happened this week, and he's not healthy, and that's a problem. It probably deserves its own discussion. He looks like a ball player. That's something you can count on. Spencer Torkelson for the last month to 6 weeks is looking like a ball player, a guy you're going to pencil into that lineup, and he's just going to bat third and play first base, and there it is. Kerry Carpenter, still probably an unproven commodity. People aren't going to like hearing that because they're going to say he's just as good as Torkelson. Maybe so, but when you're drafted in the 19th round, you're always going to have that bit of prove it on you until you do it for a longer stretch. I'm not even sure he's at 500 at-bats yet for his career. But he looks like he could potentially be the guy. So I think you plug in a couple of vets in free agency and trade this year, 2 Torkelson and Green and Carpenter, and then, yes, Colt Keith is going to get his at-bats. No question about it. He'll earn it. Malloy, probably they've got to find a spot for him somewhere. But remember, a lot of these young guys you talk about, whether it's Winsell Perez and Colt Keith and Malloy and Lipsius, and a couple of them are going to stink. Okay, I'm just putting it right out there. When you have 4, 5, 6 rookies and you're counting on them, you better not count on all of them to play well. You might get 1 or 2 who play well. And that's okay. I mean, that's just kind of the natural odds of baseball. Some guys adjust quickly and some guys do it. Torkelson, if Colt Keith gets like rookie level Spencer Torkelson next year, that's not a shocker. That's not a stunning development. That could definitely happen. So we hope not. Well, I hope he's rookie of the year and they get a first round draft pick from starting him from the beginning of the season. But I think, John, to answer your question, they should look to compete next year. They should try to plug in at least 1 or 2 of those young players. But I think the other spots that they have around the diamond where they could upgrade, they need to tap into the veteran market.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm at the point where it's like the veteran market. I can't see them getting that much better. Like Matt Chapman is a good third baseman. If you were to tell me that Cole Keith could be a better hitter than Matt Chapman next year, I don't think that's out of the question. Like Matt Chapman has been a very streaky, and if you're going to be spending all that money on him, I mean, why not just see what you have in Cole Keith? And you already do have these veterans in play. You have Zach McKinstry in place, where if everything goes wrong with Malloy and Cole Keith, you can plug him in there and he could be somewhat respectable. You still have Andy Ibanez, and we've seen Lipsius. He hit his first home run. You have Winsel Perez, who's been tearing it up in Toledo. It's going to be a really interesting discussion, but I think at the end of the day, if you believe in the core they have right now, if you believe Torkelson and Green and Carpenter are for real, you hope those guys can kind of carry the offense along next year. And maybe there's a veteran you add. But yeah, I think it's just a really interesting discussion because I've been hearing things like if the Tigers really want to compete next year, Javi Baez is not going to be their shortstop and stuff like that. So it'll be really interesting to see. I want them to spend money, but I would agree with you guys. It would probably be on some veteran pitching. But in terms of like offensively, it'll be interesting to see if they really want to give these guys as many at-bats as they possibly can, or if they want to add a veteran like a Whit Merrifield like we've talked about. I've been a big Jamer Candelario guy. There's some veteran outfielders as well. But I think that's kind of the debate we're going to be having over this offseason, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see what Scott Harris decides to do.
And again, I've talked about this before. That's the wild card, right? Scott Harris, he had a kind of a quiet offseason last year, traded a couple of relievers, but didn't really make a big stamp on the team kind of move. So we don't know, is he the kind of guy who's going to let loose and make a blockbuster and make some kind of trade? Or does he just, kind of stay beneath the radar and make small moves this year? We don't know what his MO really is.